ChemCommNet, second Monday at 7 p.m., W5FC.
If anybody needs to use a repeater, we'll be starting Skynet here in 5 minutes. This is N5BB.
This is the W5FC repeater, PL110.9.
Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
This is N5BB, November 5 Bravo Bravo. My name is Bill. I'll be your net control for this session of the Dallas Amateur Radio Club Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. local time concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions. You do not need to be a member of any club to participate. Stations with priority or emergency traffic can enter the net at any time by using the # break at your call sign. Is there any emergency or party traffic at this time? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. Stations are reminded to identify the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are not possible this evening because the Echolink node is temporarily off. It's off. It's not working tonight. So I'll apologize for that, and we will, of course, lose some stations that can't get in from a distance. Can't do anything about it. It's not working. So it's RF only this evening. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. By the way, Tom said the streaming might work this evening. Not sure. All amateur operators are welcome. You do not need to be a member of any club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long, structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, National Space Society, discussion topic of the evening by your net control. What's up? We talk about what you can see outside. Space exploration and space history, constellation of the week, space launches of the week, recent astronomical discoveries, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, and if we have time, astronomical questions and answers, followed by 73 round. Again, all amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. So let's start about short-time check-ins. Stations that can't stay very long and want to check in and they may be leaving. Please come now with all short-time check-ins with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from. This is N5BB, Net Control. Well, this may be a short net. Okay, then let's go to general check-ins. Echolink is not working tonight, so any RF check-in, please come now with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from. This is N5BB. Go ahead.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz Mesquite.
Kilo
Golf 5, Bravo, Zulu, Whiskey, J, or whatever.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. This is Brenda, and I am in Louisville.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas. And yes, I see Brenda there on the stream.
Kilo Echo 5, Echo November, Eric in Plano.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Ranch.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Quebec Echo Kilo, Jarrett in Euless. Okay, we'll pause there. I recognize KF5GHA, Chaz, KG5BZW, J, WB5OZL, Berinda, NT5TM, Tony, KE5EN, Eric, KF5ZBL, Bill, and KF5QEK, Jarrett. Again, I apologize, but we don't have Echolink running tonight. Do we have any other stations that would like to check in to Skynet? This is N5BB.
Kilo 5, Juliet, Delta, Whiskey, John and Coppell.
Recognize K5JDW, John. Any other check-ins to Skynet? This is N5BB.
Kilo Echo 5, Papa Oscar Echo, Lee in Mansfield.
Okay, please give me your call sign again and your name.
Kilo Echo 5, Papa Oscar Echo, Lee in Mansfield.
We got it that time, Lee. I acknowledge KE5POE. Thank you for checking in, Lee. Do we have any other check-ins to Skynet? This is N5BB. Oh man, we may have a short net tonight. Not too many stations to check in. That was minimal. Okay. Since we're finished with our check-ins now, do we have any general announcements? This is anything. It could be local news or non-local news relating to amateur radio, astronomy, or space. Anything of general interest to licensed hams. Please come now with call sign only. November Tango 5, Tango Mike. I got Tony. Do we have anybody else with any announcements? Take it away, Tony. NT5TM. This is N5BB. Skynet. Well, this is a interesting Saturday night. It's going to be the second weekend of the month, so we don't have a meeting on the air or Races net tomorrow. But this is not the last net of the weekend. Don't despair yet. We have a net following at about 10:30-ish p.m., the Afterglow movie discussion, discussing tonight Bram Stoker's Dracula from 1992. It's one of Aaron and my favorite date movies,
So obviously I like it, and I think you should join us here tonight to talk about it. Again, roughly 10:30 or so p.m. Hope to hear you on the air, NT5TM. Oh, wait. And the information about the October lecture and lab is up at w5fc.org if you're interested in going out and joining us in the park and building a really useful, really easy antenna. NT5TM.
Very good, Tony. Thank you for announcing the Afterglow Net and the topic. And the other events from the club. Does anybody else have any questions or comments about what Tony said, or any additional news items relating to amateur radio or science or astronomy? This is N5BB, Net Control, Skynet.
KF5QEK.
KF5QEK. Jarrett, go ahead with your questions, comments, or items.
Well, not much has been going on around here. Pertaining to amateur radio and battery backup systems, I'm restoring some old lead-acid golf cart batteries. They're in pretty rough shape, but I've got one that seems to be working so far, and I haven't started on the others yet. So it's an adventure and a project. KF5QEK, back to net.
Okay. Do we have any other news relating to amateur radio or space before I move ahead? This is N5BB, Net Control, Skynet. I have one piece of unfortunate news. I have a silent key report. For you newbies, a silent key, it's like relating to Morse code. It's when the key is silent because the person's dead and can't use it. Dennis Brady, W5FRS, age 73, in Irving, passed away on Tuesday of this week. Unfortunately, his wife had passed away about a month earlier. They both had heart problems. Dennis had the worst heart problems. And he knew he had big heart problems. He was preparing for not being able to live too much longer, but we were still shocked to hear that he passed away on Tuesday. Dennis was very, very involved with the Irving Amateur Radio Club. If there was somebody that passed away and there was an estate, Dennis was the one that would go through and check all the radios and put prices on them and see what was good and what was not good. And he would do many other things. He helped set up our club ham shack and the antennas on top of the roof of the club ham shack. At every field, he was a big helper. Dennis and I would operate CW. He loved CW and AM. And every field day, we would operate CW. I would operate, he would log, and then he would operate, I would log. And he loved using a bug, mechanical bug. I liked using paddles, electronic keyer. Anyway, I knew Dennis for over 25 years, probably 30 years. And very, very sorry to have to announce his passing. The memorial service was yesterday here in Irving. So, unfortunately, he will be sorely missed. Okay, so let's move ahead to the next item of business. Well, first, do we have any other check-ins to Skynet? This is N5BB, Net Control. Over.
This is Kilo Golf 5 Echo India Uniform, David, St. Paul, Texas.
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot India, WB4MFI, Ted Dallas Low Power.
Okay, I acknowledge KG5EIU David, WB4MFI. Hello, Ted. Do we have any other check-ins to Skynet? This is N5BB. Nothing heard. The AMSAT, that's the Radio Amateur Satellite Organization. The AMSAT group has 2 local nets on local repeaters. On Tuesdays at 8 p.m., there's a net on this repeater, 146.88, at 8 p.m. every Tuesday. The only times that the net is skipped is when there's a club meeting, which is also on Tuesday night. So when there's a club meeting, that net is skipped that week. But on all other Tuesday nights, there's an AMSAT net here at 8 p.m. on this repeater. Then on Wednesdays at 9 p.m., there's a similar net on the Arlington 147.140 megahertz repeater. Both repeaters have a 110.9 offset. 110.9 PL tone. The Arlington repeater has a positive offset. So there's also Echolink related AMSAT nets you can see under AMSAT. But those local AMSAT nets are very good for talking to local hams in our area, getting hits and kinks and all kinds of news of what's been going on. Tom N5HYP is involved along with some other stations. We have a lot of nets on this repeater on Mondays. The first Monday we have ham fixing net, and these nets are at 7 p.m. The first Monday we have ham fixing net. Second Monday we have emergency communication net. Third week another ham fixing net, since food is something you got to have. The fourth Monday of every week, the fourth Monday of every month, we have the Geek Net. It's geeky stuff. The fifth Monday of every month, which most months don't have, but when there is a fifth Monday, we have a surprise net. If we told you what it was, it wouldn't be a surprise. And we don't know yet. Sometimes we don't know until right before we start the net. So we encourage people to participate in these Monday night nets. Again, Tuesday night I mentioned the AMSAT net on this repeater. On Friday nights, there's the CERT City simulation net. This has to do with emergency response. It's in the summer here, it's on at 8 p.m. on Friday evenings on this repeater. Melissa, KI5GRH, kind of runs that net. Then on Saturday night, we have TechNet at 7 o'clock. We have Skynet at 9 p.m. And we have the Afterglow net at 10:30. And then on the first and third Sundays of every month, the Dallas Amateur Radio Club has a meeting on the air at 7 p.m. And then every day, there's a National Traffic System training net on this repeater at 6:30 p.m. And the National Traffic System late net at 10:30 p.m. is on the Irving 146.72 megahertz repeater. All people are welcome to check in on any or all of these nets. You do not have to sign up or anything. You just appear and check in. Please listen before you transmit, though, because on most of these nets, you can only check in when net control allows it. We've already talked, let's see, the Afterglow net. Tony, do you want to read the Afterglow net information? Are you looking at it in 5BB?
Sure, if you give me just a second. I was actually being a ham fixins person in the kitchen for a little bit here. Let me switch over to the other gear. Okay.
It's in the script right before the Texas Astronomical Society. It's the very end of item 1. Go ahead.
Yeah, oh, I see it. I just was stalling while I walked to the other room. Tonight's Afterglow info. Dracula's chair turned to the mirror as the barber asked, "What do you think?" Dracula looked at the mirror reflection and realized he couldn't see his new hairdo. So he had to ask Floyd the barber what he'd done. Floyd responded, "Well, Drac, it's a bit of a pompadour style with a striking white streak. I would recommend you duck when you go through doors, and it might cause whiplash when the hair smashes into the keystone of the doorway." Dracula looked down the line of chairs. Another vampire was getting his hair done. Dracula just mumbled, "Kids," as he looked over at the young and very sparkly vampire. It was obvious that guy wasn't getting any action with that pulsating eyesore. Join us this week for Skynet, Dracula, 1992 by Francis Ford Coppola. Yeah, that guy. Remember that you can keep up with all the ARC Net's activities by going to the club website at w5fc.org. This is NT5TM.
Oh boy, since we had Floyd the barber, I was hoping that Barney would angle in and get all excited about something and maybe even consider pulling his gun out and looking for a bullet. Anyway, that young vampire must only be 100 years old. Very good. Yes, Dracula, 1992 version by Francis Ford Coppola. Tonight, 10:30 p.m. on this repeater. Don't miss it. N5BB, net control. Real quickly, any more check-ins? This is N5BB, Skynet.
Alpha Golf, 9 Sierra Golf, low power.
AG9SG, thank you very much for checking in. Do we have any other check-ins? This is N5BB. Next, we have the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas. That's right, TAS. And our own expert, Chaz, KF5JHA, will provide information and may even tell us a joke. Take it away, Chaz, N5BB.
Why, thank you, Bill. I try to save those puns and jokes for the constellation of the week. We'll get to those later. Good evening. Yes, this is Chaz, KF5JHA. The next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be held on Friday, October the 22nd at 7:30 p.m. This will be a meeting held on Zoom. The scheduled speaker is Brother Guy. He's a Jesuit priest, an American research astronomer, physicist, Jesuit religious brother, director of the Vatican Observatory, and the president of the Vatican Observatory Foundation. Brother Guy is one of the authors of a popular astronomy book called Turn Left at Orion. Brother Guy's topic is discarded worlds, astronomical ideas that were almost correct. Task Club members will receive an email link to the Zoom meeting in advance of the meeting, usually the week before. Saturday night observing sessions have been placed on hold because of COVID. One of the reasons that Skynet was picked to be on Saturday nights was so that there was an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society public observing sessions that are also held on Saturday nights. Well, that's not happening right now. If you want more information, go to the TAS website, texasastro.org, for up-to-date information. And this is KF5JHA, back to our net control, N5BB.
Thank you, Chaz. Are there any questions about the Texas Astronomical Society? If so, please come down with your call sign only. Nothing heard? next, you get to listen to me for a while. I'm sorry, but it's required. The National Space Society. So I happen to be the membership director of the North Texas chapter of the National Space Society. The National Space Society is a mostly U.S. organization. It's a nonprofit which encourages human uses of space. It's a group of enthusiasts. And we're the people at the table distributing the NASA literature and things about SpaceX and Blue Origin and all that kind of stuff. And talking about Mars trips and space probes and the Hubble Space Telescope and all that kind of stuff. So we don't talk about astronomy. We talk about human activities in space. Essentially, these days, anything that go out on a rocket or a space plane, there is one of those. Anyway, we normally have monthly meetings on the every month on the, getting my brain together here, the second Sunday of every month. Second Sunday afternoon of every month. And the meeting starts at 3:30, and the actual presentation for the meeting starts at 4. Our normal meeting location is Spring Creek Barbecue in Irving at Beltline and Highway 183, a couple of miles east of the south entrance at DFW Airport. However, we've gone back to virtual meetings until this wave of the pandemic disappears again. So our next virtual meeting will be tomorrow, and I'm the host on WebEx. If you would like to listen to our meeting tomorrow on WebEx, watch the PowerPoint and listen, talk, you can do that by sending me an email at space@byrom.net, space@byrom.net, or n5bb@arrl.net. And I will send you a registration link to the meeting. The meeting topic tomorrow, the presentation, which starts at 4, will be on CubeSats. And it's not from a ham. It's from a member of our organization. His name is Pradipta. And it's talking about how CubeSats and relating to the National Space Society and schools and those kind of things. CubeSats are really big for schools. So that's National Space Society tomorrow. And if you have any interest in the National Space Society, be sure to send me a message. The North Texas chapter of the National Space Society has a website, although it's not maintained very well right now, and it's nssofnt.org. That's nssofnt.org. Abbreviation for National Space Society of North Texas. By the way, the National Space Society won an award this year as the best chapter in National Space Society in the world. And we've won that Best Chapter Award several times in the last decade. So we're a very active chapter. It's just we're kind of shut down now because of the COVID. However, we did have an event today at the Irving South Library. We were there from about noon to 4 p.m., and we had a literature table, which I was sitting at and talking to people, and we had a presentation, although the library's projector thing wasn't working right, and so our presenter had to just talk rather than use the PowerPoint. Oh, well. So, are there any questions about National Space Society before we move ahead? This is N5BB. Any questions or any check-ins? nothing heard. Unfortunately, now you've got to listen to me again because it's a discussion topic for the evening, and since I'm net control, I'm the one doing the talking. The name of this is The Fault in Our Stars. Satellite swarms are threatening the night sky. I'm going to read sections of an article in the October 8th most recent issue, today's issue of Science, or yesterday's issue of Science magazine. This is the magazine published by the American Association for the Advancement of Science. And it's got both popular kind of things in it, and it has hard science technical reports. So it is a journal kind of a magazine. And it's a long article. So I'm only going to just kind of jump through it and talk about little pieces of it. Again, is low Earth orbit the next great crucible of environmental conflict? And this article is by Joshua Sokol, S-O-K-O-L. On December the 19th of 2019, Tony Tyson, an experimental physicist at the University of California, UC Davis, joined a conference call with billionaire Elon Musk that helped shape the fate of starry nights on Earth. The call was cordial but tense. 7 months earlier, Musk's company, SpaceX, had live-streamed a feed of 60 satellites drifting off into space from the bay of one of the firm's rockets. The satellites, the triumphant first wave of a project called Starlink, were built to beam down broadband internet to every corner of the globe. But as the satellites do laps around the Earth, people looking up at night saw a string of glittering pearls as bright as the stars in the Big Dipper. This is N5BB, Skynet, on the Dallas Amateur Radio Club, 88 repeater. Those 6 satellites were just the beginning. Starlink already had permission to launch 12,000, let me repeat that, 12,000 satellites, roughly 6 times the number of active satellites which were then in orbit. The next year, the company added another 30,000. Other billionaire-backed companies, Jeff Bezos' Project Cooper, and OneWeb, funded in part by Richard Branson, were planning comparable space internet swarms, leading to industry forecasts of more than 100,000 satellites in orbit by the end of this decade, the 2020s. In the best stargazing conditions, human eyes can perceive about 3,000 twinkling stars overhead. If the planned satellites ended up as bright as the first Starlinks, they would fill future summer nights with a comparable number of creeping dots. That means when you went out at night, and when the sun was at the right angle, so this is after twilight or early in the morning, you would see twice as many stars as you normally can see, but half of them would be artificial stars. Sunlight reflected off these new satellites. This is N5BB. Almost overnight, a new arena of environmental conflict opened up. Astronomers weren't the only ones who saw an existential threat. Environmentalists amateur stargazers, and indigenous leaders working to revive astronomical traditions saw on the front to the planet's dwindling dark skies and act as vandalistic as carving initials into a tree trunk in front of the whole world. From a cultural point of view, it is a desecration, says Ranji Matamua, Maori culture astronomer at Massey University in Manawatu. For Tyson, the stakes were narrower and more personal, but no less dire. In 1996, when he worked at Bell Labs, he conceived a wide-field telescope capable of soaking in the entire sky overhead out to the edge of the visible universe every single night. That endeavor became a $700 million project supported by the National Science Foundation, one that would push a charge couple, that's CCD cameras, which were a Nobel Prize-winning technology invented at Bell Labs, to their maximum potential. As the first Starlink circled the planet, a construction crew in the Chilean Andes Mountains had just delivered the main mirror for what's now called the Vera C. Rubin Observatory, scheduled to open shutters to the universe in the next couple of years. All was nice, happy and nice, with their heads buried underneath the sand, Tyson said, because they didn't think about these new satellites. But Tyson and colleagues quickly apprehended the threat. In the lab, they simulated satellite streaks over the Rubin Observatory's Volkswagen-sized 3.2 gigapixel camera. Each photobombing satellite, the researchers found, would cause not just one useless streak of pixels, but a series of ghostly echoes. Code could be written to avert the telescope's gaze when a satellite crossed over. But as the number of satellites in the sky ticked past 10,000, they would start to intrude into every exposure. The swarms would interfere not just with the Rubin, but any other wide-field studies of dark matter, dark energy, interstellar comets, and flaring transients such as supernova. The satellites would also confound efforts to find potentially hazardous asteroids. Those searches need to be conducted around twilight, exactly when the satellites are most visible. This is Skynet in 5BB net control. Soon after the launches began, lawyers and activists got involved, asking pointed questions about whether near-Earth space, once a domain of nations and militaries, but now open to business and billionaires, was an environmental commons in need of protection, such as a forest or a river. Executives such as Musk pushed back, arguing global broadband would be a boon for poor, isolated communities, desperate for online opportunities. But Tyson, for the moment at least, wanted to avoid public conflict. He emailed a former contact at SpaceX, hoping to speak engineer to engineer as he would have back in Bell Labs days. This is N5BB. And so it was that Tyson and several colleagues found themselves on the phone with Musk himself, negotiating the first chapter in an ongoing environmental dispute over who exactly decides the future of the sky. According to other people on the call, Musk said if astronomers were clever, they would just put their telescopes into space, where the seeing was better anyway. But doing that would cost 10 to 100 times more. And if SpaceX was clever, that their engineers could solve the satellite brightness problem cheaply. And Tyson wanted to diminish the satellite intensity by a factor of 30 or even 100. And Musk was balking at that last figure. But at the end of the conversation, Elon Musk turned to some SpaceX engineers on the call. Fix this, he said. This is N5BB, Skynet. The dream of satellite internet has come and gone before. In the 1990s, companies such as Globalstar and Iridium started to sell satellite phones. But one by one, the companies went bankrupt. And by the time Teledesic shuttered, its single prototype had burned up in the atmosphere. More than a decade later, the cost of building and launching a satellite had fallen dramatically, inspiring a spree of space internet schemes backed not just by billionaires, but also by the Chinese government. Unlike traditional internet satellites, large, expensive beacons perched in deep geostationary orbit, the satellites in these constellations would zip past at much lower altitudes. Many more satellites would be needed to ensure one was always above a given point in the ground. But lower orbits mean shorter lag times, with signals whipping up and down in thousandths of a second. Better for a lot of internet uses. I'm going to skip now through this, but Starlink has plans for 41,914 satellites. The China Star Network for 12,992 satellites. OneWeb for 6,372 satellites, and Project Cooper from Amazon, 3,236 satellites. So these satellites are typically below and above the Hubble Space Telescope. Okay? So they're at various altitudes. The International Space Station is at 408 kilometers average altitude. Some of these satellites are below the International Space Station, some are above, and some are even above the Hubble Space Telescope. So they're at different altitudes. But it's all what's called low Earth orbit. This is N5BB. So the bottom line is the first thing they tried was Starlink engineers launched a satellite painted with a less reflective coating. And this much darker surface it dimmed the satellite, didn't reflect as much, but absorbed too much heat. It got too hot. So they then had an alternate tweak. For the brightest period after launch, the satellites would roll on their sides to present a less reflective surface. And they would also be built with a sun visor, cutting down on reflections. These sun visors helped. Of the nearly 17 Starlinks now in orbit, more than 1,000 have sunshades. Most now appear between magnitude 6 and 6.5. They'd like to get to 7th magnitude. They're not quite there, but they're about 1/3 to 1/4 as the first Starlinks. So anyway, they're working on them, but astronomers are still struggling with this. And they're not sure yet. It really depends on how they improve the satellites and how they can use software on these telescopes to try filtering these out. Also, other people started to complain. This is N5BB, Skynet. Other people from around the world, astronomers, just people that like going out and looking at stars, like out in the middle of the wild, and some indigenous people that want to be able to go out and look at their stars and not have a bunch of other things in the way. Some people have thought about suing, etc. So lawyers are involved. Beware, beware. And so the SpaceX is trying to push the internet to indigenous territories that don't currently have any internet connectivity to try to mediate some of the complaints they have about going outside and seeing all these things in the sky. So there's a lot of politics and legal things going on, as well as technical things to try to improve the satellites and improve the telescope images, the software. And there's an International Astronomical Union, IAU, and they're trying to would like to declare the night sky a protected World Heritage Site, but so far to no avail. And so they've been doing a number of things, trying to push the UN groups to try to regulate the sky, essentially. So, Tinebi Aganaba, a state governance expert at Arizona State University in Tempe, predicts these developments will eventually shift space from an inaccessible, specialized domain to a shared one, governed by laws and norms. These are age-old problems. Space is all that unique. It's just another domain of human activity now. For now, the future is uncertain. Before leaving Washington in June, I drove, the author of this article, drove to the center of the state and then rattled down several gravel and dirt roads before a Barrelot. It was Goldendale Sky Village. And this is up in Washington State we're talking about. Over the past 3 years, a neurosurgeon named Christopher Smiles has persuaded 46 professionals from Seattle and Portland, Oregon, with a shared love of amateur astronomy to buy into a limited liability company that lets them camp up here under skies that are darker than most other places. And so they were very aggravated at seeing all these satellites coming up when they're in their really dark area. They say it's not a problem for us right now, but they put up tens of thousands of satellites, they'll become one. Okay, so that's all I've got. So this is a really interesting article. I skipped over a lot of it. There's a lot of images in it showing what you see on the these wide field telescopes. There's these streaks going across them from these satellites. It's really aggravating. Anyway, that's the end of that item. Satellite swarms are threatening the night sky. This is N5BB Skynet. Next, do we have any check-ins? This is N5BB. Come now with your call sign only.
This is Philip. This is Whiskey 5 Golf Uniform Sierra Gus for Northeast Dallas.
There was a double. I recognize W5GUS Gus, and who is Philip?
This is Kilo India 5 Kilo Tango Zulu, Philip, White Rock Creek.
This is TZ Philip. Do we have anybody else who would like to check into Skynet? This is N5BB.
K1GBD.
Joe and Wally.
Okay, there's another double. K1GBD, please come in with your name and location, Guy.
This is Guy in Medium North Dallas, K1GBD.
We got it. Who is the other station? Your call sign, name, and location, please. This is N5BB, Skynet.
KG5ZIX, Joe, Wiley.
Hi, Joe. I recognize KG5ZIX. Do we have anybody else who'd like to check into Skynet? This is N5BB. Okay. So after all my very sad comments here in this article about these satellites maybe permanently affecting our ability to walk outside and see what's going on up above us, Chaz is going to tell us what's up. And he's going to tell us what you can see as long as the Starlink satellites aren't covering them up. Take it away, Chaz, N5BB.
Thank you, Bill. Good evening, everyone. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. My degree is in astrophysics, and I am in charge of the astrophysics lab and the geology lab at Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus. We do call this segment of Skynet What's Up. Brenda, if you're running slides, we're on slide number 2 now. On October the 6th, the moon was new. So the current phase of the moon is a waxing crescent. On October the 12th, the moon is at first quarter. Oh, and October the 20th, the moon is full. On October the 24th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth. On October the 28th, the moon will be at its third quarter phase. Slide Master Brenda, please, slide number 3. Earlier this evening, maybe all of you saw it. I don't know if you did or didn't, but you should have. The moon was next to the planet Venus in the western evening sky. Paintings and jewelry and drawings are made that, well, that looks like this site. I hope it was clear this evening, so I hope all of you had a chance to take a look at it. Slide Master, slide number 4. Also tonight, on October the 9th and 10th, the southern Taurid meteor shower peaks with about a half a dozen meteors per hour. And again, meteor showers are best seen after midnight and before dawn. Slide Master, slide number 5, please. On Wednesday, October the 13th, the moon and Saturn are in conjunction in the southern evening sky. And the later you wait in the evening, the closer they will be together. Slide number 6, please. The very next night, on Thursday, October the 14th, the moon and Jupiter are in conjunction in the southern evening sky. And once again, the later in the evening that you look, the closer that they will be together. Slide number 7. The next evening, looking in the western sky on October the 15th, you'll find that the planet Venus and the brightest star in Scorpius, Antares, are in conjunction. They'll only be about 1 degree apart from each other. If you hold your hand out at arm's length, then the width of your fingers are about 1 degree. Okay. Slide number 8, please. This is a little bit more than a month away, but I want to let you know about this. Early morning on Friday, November the 19th, there will be a partial lunar eclipse. Actually, this is a lunar eclipse that's almost a total. 97% of the moon will travel into the Earth's umbral shadow. So most people will see this eclipse as a total lunar eclipse. The moon will enter the lighter part of the Earth's shadow, called the penumbra, at 12:02 a.m. Central Standard Time. This will be difficult to notice by most people. At 1:19 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon begins to enter the darker part of the Earth's shadow, called the umbra. At 3:04 a.m. Central Standard Time, a little over 97% of the moon will be visible inside the umbra, and this will be the middle of the eclipse and also the eclipse maximum. At 4:47 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon leaves the umbral shadow of the Earth, and at 6:04 Standard Time, the moon leaves the penumbral shadow. But the last part of the eclipse won't be visible from Dallas Metroplex because the sun is rising and the moon is setting. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 9, please. Once again, the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas club meeting will be held on Friday, October the 22nd at 7:30 p.m. It's going to be a Zoom meeting. Brother Guy will be our speaker, and his topic will be Discarded Worlds, Astronomical Ideas That Were Almost Correct. And Task Club members will receive an email link to the Zoom meeting in advance of the meeting. If you want more information about that and also the observing sessions, which are on pause right now, go to the texasastro.org website for up-to-date information. Slide Master, slide number 10, please. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of the information? Or do you just have a general astronomy question? I don't know everything, but I may know the answer to your question, or maybe someone else here on the net might have your answer. Come now with your call sign if you have a question.
NT5TM.
Mr. Tony, please come now.
Well, like most humans, I procrastinate a lot, and I've been meaning to join the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas for several years, and I keep forgetting, and I just don't know if you have to do that online or by mail. Is that something you can do on the website, or do we have to wait till they start in-person meetings again? NT5TM.
Well, that's a great question. Actually, you can do it online. Just go to the website, texasastro.org, and there'll be links on there that will guide you to the right place. I've had to renew online the last couple of years for obvious reasons, so great question. Did I answer your question, Tony?
You did. I'll take a look. NT5TM. Thank you.
Thank you, NT5TM. All right. So, Slide Master, slide number 11, please. Says the moon waned at the beginning of October, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live right now. And until next week, actually I'll be doing another Skynet segment in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5, JHA, back to our net control N5BB. It's all yours, Bill.
Thank you, Chad. This is N5BB. Anybody have any questions, comments, or late check-ins? This is N5BB. Skynet. Go ahead. Okay, next is space exploration and space history. And I'm confused because I can't tell if what's in the script was what was put in last week or somebody has put in new information for this week. It talks about October 4th to the 10th, which includes now, but it could have been put in last week. Brenda, do you know whether this is old information in here or new? The BB5OZL, this is N5BB.
This is WB5OZL. I'm sorry, I forgot to delete Kelly's name. This is new stuff, and it's my stuff, and I am ready to read it. First, we have space exploration news. This is World Space Week, October 4th through 10th. This World Space Week kicks off on October 4th, bringing people together from around the world to celebrate women in space with a variety of online events and interactive learning activities. The international celebration commemorates the achievements and contributions of space science, technology, and its applications. The events of World Space Week stretch from October 4th, the launch anniversary of the first human-made Earth satellite, Sputnik 1, in 1957, to October 10th, the anniversary of the signing of the Outer Space Treaty in 1967, which governs how to use space, such as the moon and other celestial bodies, peacefully. Many events are being held to celebrate World Space Week. Please check the links for exact times. Oh, I'm sorry, that's from the article. We don't have links here. It's of the live presentations closer to the date of your event. And if registration is required, you can find a full list of this year's events on worldspacweek.org. Go there and you can see information. Next, working overtime, NASA's Deep Space Atomic Clock completes mission. For 2 years, NASA's Deep Space Atomic Clock has been pushing the timekeeping frontiers in space. On September 18th, 2021, its mission came to a successful end. The instrument is hosted on General Atomics orbital testbed spacecraft that was launched aboard the Department of Defense Space Test Program 2 mission June 25th, 2019. Its goal, to test the feasibility of using an atomic clock, onboard atomic clock, to improve spacecraft navigation in deep space. Currently, spacecraft rely on ground-based atomic clocks to measure a spacecraft's trajectory as it travels beyond the moon. Navigators use these timekeepers to precisely track when these signals are sent and received, because navigators know that radio signals travel at the speed of light, about 186,000 miles per second, or 300 kilometers per second, 300,000 kilometers. They can use these time measurements to calculate spacecraft's exact distance, speed, and direction of travel. But the farther a spacecraft is from Earth, the longer it takes to send and receive signals, from several minutes to a few hours, significantly delaying these calculations. With an atomic clock, with an onboard atomic clock paired with a navigation system, the spacecraft could immediately calculate where it is and where it is going. Built by NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Southern California, the Deep Space Atomic Clock is an ultra-precise mercury-ion atomic clock encased in a small box that measures about 10 inches on each side, roughly the size of a toaster. Designed to survive the rigors of launch and the cold, high-radiation environment of space without its timekeeping performance degrading, the Deep Space Atomic Clock was a technology demonstration intended to carry out technological firsts and fill critical knowledge gaps. Space-related birthdays. Charlie Duke, October 3rd, 1935. He flew on Apollo 16. Catherine D. Sullivan, October 9th, 1951. She flew on STS 41, 31, and 45. Richard Gordon, October 5th, 1929. He was on Gemini 11 and Apollo 12. Robert R. Gilruth, October 8th, 1913. He was the director of the NASA Manned Spacecraft Center. Karen Nyberg, October 7th, 1969, STS-124, and Soyuz TMA 09M Expedition 3637. James E. Voss, October 8th, 1956, SCS 57, 63, 83, 94, and 99. Robert Rushworth, October 9th, 1924, an X-15 pilot who qualified as an astronaut because he flew above 50 miles. Gregory T. Lynn Terrace, October 4th, 1957, STS 93 and 94. Brent Jet, October 5th, 1958, STS 72, 81, 97, and 115. And this week in space history, Sputnik 1 was the first artificial Earth satellite. It was launched into an elliptical low Earth orbit by the USSR on October 4th, 1957, as part of the Soviet space program. It orbited for 3 weeks before its batteries died, and then orbited silently for 2 months before it fell back to the atmosphere on 4 January 1958. Its signal could be heard by ham radio operators. That's all I got. Back to net, WB50ZL.
Very good, Brenda. This is N5BB, Skynet Net Control. Does anybody have any comments, questions, or late check-ins? This is N5BB. Go ahead.
November 5, Zulu, Charlie X-ray.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean Fort Worth, late check-in.
Okay, I recognize KB9SOK, Sean. And N5ZCX. Good evening. What's your name and location, please?
Yes, thank you. My name is Andy. My location is Louisiana. I was curious, I believe I know which repeater this is, but I'm not certain. Can you let me know which machine I'm on?
This is the 146.88 Dallas Amateur Radio Club repeater, kind of north of downtown Dallas, kind of near SMU. What part of Louisiana are you in?
I'm in a small town north of Baton Rouge. I travel through the Dallas area from time to time, and I have been on your repeater before. So we got a little bit of ducting going on. I've been listening to your net for a little while. It's something unusual going on here.
Yes, Andy, that's quite unusual. North of Baton Rouge is a pretty good shot east of here. Yeah, this is the regular Dallas Amateur Radio Club repeater, the 2-meter repeater. And this is the Astronomy and Space Net that goes on every Saturday evening from 9 until 10:30 local time. Hey, thanks for checking in and letting us know the weird propagation tonight. And you're welcome to stay. And if propagation maintains, you can hear us talk about the 1992 Dracula movie here at 10:30. We have another net called Afterglow. So it'll go from 10:30 to about midnight. Welcome, Andy. Okay, do we have any other check-ins to Skynet? This is N5BB in Dallas area.
Kilo India 5 Gulf Romeo Hotel. Melissa, just in Dallas.
Very good, Melissa. Well, you're too close to the repeater to count. How about that? North of Baton Rouge. You know, Baton Rouge is over on the east side of Louisiana. That's a long way. Very good, Melissa. Okay, do we have any other check-ins to Skynet before we continue? This is N5BB, Net Control. Andy, at least you're from Louisiana and not from Oklahoma. It is Texas OU weekend. Okay, next we have Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week in honor of our one of our favorite local members that's no longer with us. Chaz, tell us what Carolyn would have told us if she was still here to do that. KF5JHA and 5BB.
Thank you, Bill. Once again, this is Chaz, KF5JHA, Slide Master, slide number 12. Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019 with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky in a year. And in her honor, we have continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week this week is Microscopium, the microscope. Microscopium represents a microscope, of course, and is not associated with any myth because it's one of the modern constellations. Microscopium is the 66th constellation in size. Microscopium has no Messier objects, and it has no named stars in it. Slide Master, slide number 13. All right, this is the reason why everyone stays this late with the Skynet. I know. It's the jokes of the week. So I was trying to come up with a joke about my microscope, and then I realized it had a bad objective. Okay. Next one. Why did the germs cross the microscope? Well, to get to the other slide. Okay. I looked at the penny under a microscope and I said, magnificent. Okay. Next one. I highly respect microscopes. They teach us to enjoy the little things in life. Oh no. Here's another one. What do you call a mouthwash for tiny scientists? Well, this should be an easy one. Microscope. You know, instead of scope, microscope. Okay, and the last one for this part. A scientist called the customer service of his microscope company complaining that the light bulb was broke. Customer support responded that they will look into it. Someone has to type in groan or moan over in the chat session on YouTube. Yes, I'm over there on that one since we don't have Echo Link tonight. Slide Master, slide number 14. Theta Microscopium is the third brightest star in the constellation and consists of a wide double star. Theta 1 and Theta 2, which can also be seen without binoculars in ideal conditions. Both components belong to a spectral class A, and they have strong magnetic lines in their spectrum. Alpha Microscopium is the fourth brightest star in the constellation. Isn't that funny? It should be the brightest. It's a variable star with an apparent magnitude that ranges from 4.88 to 4.94, so not a big variation. The star is approximately 380 light years distance from the Earth. Alpha Microscopium is a spectral type G73 yellow giant star in a double system. The visual companion is apparent magnitude of 10 with a separation of 20.4 arcseconds. It can be seen in small telescopes. AX Microscopium is one of the nearest stars to the Sun. It's only 12.87 light years in distance. Has a spectral classification of M0VE. It's an apparent magnitude of 6.67, too faint to be seen without binoculars. It's a variable star classified as a flare star that erupts less than once a day on average. It has a mass of about 60% of that of the Sun, as one of the largest and brightest red dwarf stars known. Slide Master, slide number 15, please. NGC 6925 is a barred spiral galaxy. It has an apparent magnitude of 11.3. It's getting kind of faint there. The galaxy is a lens-shaped and appears almost edge-on as seen from the Earth. It can be found about 3.7 degrees to the west-northwest of Alpha Microscopium. It was discovered by English astronomer John Herschel in July of 1834. A-type 2b supernova 2011 EI, was observed in the galaxy in 2011. Slide Master, slide number 16. NGC 6923 is another spiral galaxy. It is an apparent magnitude of 12.2, even fainter, and lies approximately 36.4 million parsecs from the Earth. The galaxy is also discovered by John Herschel in the summer of 1834. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 17, please. I could not find any more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Microscopium. The Astronomical League has over 70 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. If you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen in about a year. Slide number 18, and that is Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week, Microscopium, the microscope. And I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson, Dennis Harwell, for their research and words on deep sky objects that I use, borrow, and steal for every night. I also at times, and this time I did use this constellation website, constellation-guide.com, for information. Next time I'll take a look at two constellations, Pisces, Austrinus, the Southern Fish, and Grus. What is Grus? Well, stay tuned until next week to find out. And this is KF5, JHA, back to our net control, N5BB. Everyone have a good night, 73.
Thank you, Chaz. Now, Tony is going to slide in here for space launches for this week. And we've got some interesting ones that are going to be all over the news media. So, Tony, take it away. NT5TM and 5BB.
Thank you, Bill. Space is getting busier and busier, so there are other launches that I won't mention, but I'm going to try to hit the most fun ones. This coming Tuesday, Captain Kirk will get to imitate Alan Shepard. William Shatner will be launched on a ballistic suborbital flight on the second New Shepard flight from Blue Origin, launching from West Texas on October 12th, this Tuesday, October 12th. But because it does involve Captain Kirk, it is already all over the news. On Thursday, October 14th, Soyuz rocket will be launching a batch of OneWeb satellites from Kazakhstan. Those are more of those internet satellite constellation objects that Bill was warning us about earlier. SpaceX is trying hard, but they're not the only one in that field. Amazon and OneWeb are trying to compete. On October 15th, which is Friday the 15th, it's a lucky day, I hope, Japan will be launching an Epsilon rocket with an interesting cluster of satellites on it. These are part of their Rapid Innovative Payload Demonstration System. They have just all kinds of interesting things on here that are meant to be high-risk experiments, little CubeSats made out of odd materials. It's just kind of cool to look up. That is not the only satellite launch coming up on Friday the 15th. There'll be a crewed launch from China. We hope, at least they've announced it, we hope they'll be able to keep their schedule. Shenzhou 13 will be launching a second crew of 3 astronauts or taikonauts to the Chinese space station. This is their 8th crewed mission and the second to their space station. And 1 week from today, a very interesting long-duration deep space mission is launching, named Lucy, also a character in Bram Stoker's Dracula, but no vampires here. This is a mission to explore Trojan asteroids. It's going to visit at least 7 of them, if I remember right. Trojan asteroids are asteroids that share the orbit of Jupiter, either a little ahead or a little behind it, where the Sun and Jupiter's gravity balance and make a stable place for the asteroids to rest. This should be really interesting and lead to a lot of chemical and physics discoveries, really chemical and geology would be the right way to describe it, about the origin of the solar system. I'm really looking forward to getting the data from Lucy, although I have many, many years to wait. A few other launches. There'll be some more Starlinks from SpaceX, an Electron launch from New Zealand, and some other launches. There's a lot of good things to learn about, but those were the high points. Oh, wait. Something to look forward to, Falcon 9 Crew 3. This is on October 30th, on Halloween Eve, I guess we could say, All Saints Day's Eve. A crew will be launched to the ISS on a Falcon 9 with a Dragon crew capsule. Well, that's this week in rocket launches, and one look ahead to later in the month, I'm sure anticipating Lucy, NT5TN.
Very good, Tony. Thank you very much for picking up that segment. And now, Brenda, we have time for you to do the recent astronomical discoveries. Take it away, Brenda, in 5BB.
Thank you. This is WB5OZL. This article is entitled Using Dunes to Interpret Wind on Mars. Dunes develop when wind-blown sand organizes into patterns, most often in deserts or arid or semi-arid parts of the world. Every continent on Earth has dune fields, but dunes and dune-like sand patterns are also found across the solar system, on Mars, Venus, Titan, Comet 67P, and Pluto. On Earth, weather stations measure the wind speed and direction, allowing us to predict and understand airflow here. Other planets and planetary bodies, we do not yet have weather stations measuring the winds, with a few recent exceptions on Mars only. Without a way to use the patterns in dunes to interpret what the wind must be doing based on our knowledge of dunes on Earth. Furthermore, by studying dunes across planets, we can get a better understanding of how wind and sand behave in general. In this geology paper, published today, Mackenzie Day of the University of California, Los Angeles, focuses on what happens when two dunes collide. On Earth, we know that dunes collide, combine, link, and merge all the time, says Day. This is what drives changes in dune field patterns over time. When this happens, the dune-dune interaction leaves behind a particular pattern in the sand, but that pattern is usually covered by actively moving sand and difficult to see without special tools. On Mars, many dunes look and behave similar to dunes on Earth, but in addition, Mars hosts patterns of organized sand that are dune-like, but have some differences that have yet to be explained by the scientific community. Whether or not these unusual features, sometimes called transverse aeolian or megaripples, are formed like dunes, has been long debated. In this work, says Day, I show that these unusual wind-driven sand ridges sometimes show on their surfaces the pattern that forms when two dunes combine. In the Lapesia region of Mars, transverse aeolian ridges incorporated both light and dark sands, leading to light-dark banding in the upwind side of the ridges. Banding occurring only on one side of the ridges suggests that the banding formed as the ridges migrated. Furthermore, the dune interaction pattern known from Earth can be seen in some ridges where the banding is truncated and then reconnects, just like two dunes touching and then combining downwind. The pattern associated with dune interactions only forms when two dunes combine. Therefore, seeing it in these Martian sand ridges demonstrates that these enigmatic features, like those shown in the image attached, behave like dunes on Earth. Just like dunes on Earth, transverse aeolian ridges on Mars migrate, combine, and develop complex patterns in response to the wind. Transverse aeolian ridges are incredibly common on Mars, and the results of this work allow us to better interpret the wind at the surface of Mars using these dune-like features. Overall, Day says this work leverages both knowledge of Mars and knowledge of Earth to understand the other planet and opens the door to improving how we interpret wind across planetary bodies further into the solar system. All right, that's the end. This is from ScienceDaily.com. This is WB50ZL.
Very good, Brenda. This is N5BB. Skynet. Now we're going to slide in Tony, NT5TM, discussing the visible satellite passage over the next couple of days. And no, he's not going to tell us where all of those hundreds, soon to be thousands, of small satellites are going to be. He'll find some other interesting ones. Go ahead, Tony, N5BB.
Thank you, Bill. I'd like to encourage everyone to keep their eye on heavens-above.com. That's the website, heavens-above.com. They do a great job of giving you really kind of pointers on the brightest and easiest to see satellites, and really I'm just kind of giving you a very brief summary here because it's getting late. There are no good ISS passes in the next week for those of us in the DFW area. There are a few good passes for other bright objects. All the upcoming Hubble Space Telescope passes are before sunrise. You've been warned. The Hubble is visible as a medium bright star, so it doesn't shine out super bright, but you can see it almost every day of the next week, but always early in the morning around 6 a.m. So I'm not going to go through that whole list. I can't get up that early. Have a look at heavens-above.com, heavensabove.com. The secret X-37B spaceplane has one very bright pass predicted. This is as bright as kind of a lousy ISS pass. It's as bright as a very bright star. On Monday, this Monday at 8:14 p.m. There's one on Monday at 8:14 p.m. and another on Wednesday at 7:54. So they're both kind of 8-ish. But if you only remember one bright satellite pass this week, if it doesn't change orbit or re-enter, I mean, it's a secret space plane. It does secret things. But if it behaves as predicted, this Monday at 8:14 should have a very bright pass of the X-37B over the Dallas area. We've got one good pass of Tiangong, the Chinese space station, on Friday the 15th at 8:20. And just like the Hubble, the giant defunct European Space Administration satellite EnviSat, which was just one of the biggest and heaviest civilian satellites ever flown, has a number of moderately bright passes, one almost every day of the week. But just like the Hubble, all the good ones are in the pre-dawn hours. So if some night you can't sleep, have a look at heavens-above.com. But again, if you only remember one bright satellite pass, remember the bright X-37B pass this Monday at 8:14. It should be actually pretty easy to see. Lasts 4 or 5 minutes long, gets reasonably high. I've never seen it. I'm going to try the X-37B this Monday. This is NT5TM.
Normal state.
Very good, Tony. Well, that takes us, with perfect timing, to the end of the net. Are there any astronomical questions? We might have some answers. Any astronomical questions? This is N5BB. You got no questions? We got no answers. Okay, 73 rounds. Do we have any last-minute check-ins or other comments or questions before I close the net? This is N5BB. Skynet in Dallas. Any questions or comments?
I'm completely operational, and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
Sounds like Hal didn't want to be left out. So tonight we had 20 check-ins to the net. I want to thank everybody for participating, especially Tony and Brenda for coming in and modifying their normal schedule to do things a little differently because we had a couple of people who were missing. And Brenda did triple duty. I don't know what all she's done tonight, but she's been the guy behind the curtain. If you see the original Wizard of Oz, she's the guy. She's the person behind the curtain that's pulling all the levers, making it work. You don't really know what she's doing, but it's working. We hope you'll be here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls and send an email to nets@w5fc.org. That's NETS at w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net, which is in a few seconds. Until next Saturday night, this is N5BB. Bill, I'll be closing a net at 10:32 p.m. local time. We're turning the net repeater to its normal amateur use for just a few minutes until we start Afterglow. So stay tuned for the Afterglow net here shortly. Thank you very much, everybody. Now, who wants to be Afterglow net control? I was not able to see the movie. I think I saw it decades ago, but I haven't seen it recently, so I don't want to be involved with the discussion. The movie is a 1992 Dracula movie that was directed by Francis Ford Coppola. A very impressive movie. Does anybody want to be net control for Afterglow? This is N5BB.
N5BB, K1GBD.
K1GBD. Guy, can you do it?
Yes, I just finished the movie. I believe I can be net control station for the Afterglow movie discussion.
Oh, very good, very good. Very good. So get your Transylvanian accent going there and get the music playing in the background, which we can't play over the air. And I'll let you run the Afterglow net. A very good evening to you, and I won't participate because I want to see this movie again, and I don't want my brain to be fogged, you know, my brain to be fogged by all this discussion. N5BB clear. Good night.
Hey, before you run, is there a script or anything, or is it just kind of seat your pants?
It's by the seat of your pants, assuming you're sitting down. Otherwise, it's by the soles of your feet if you're standing, walking. And what you do is you first get check-ins, and you ask if each person has seen the movie. And you make sure you know what their name is. And then what you do is you ask each person, you choose the order. You can choose any order you want from the people that check in. And one by one, you ask them, the first round of questions is, what did you think about the plot? So that's about the overview of the movie. Was it a good movie? Was it a bad movie? Horrible plot. And you talk about plot points and bad science and you name it. Anything involving the plot. Then after everybody has spent a long time doing that, you go back for this, and you have a chance to do it too, and you can choose where you want to be in the list. You can be first, you can be last, you can be in the middle. And then the second round is you talk about the characterization. And we kind of expand that to mean the acting, the directing, how the characters come over. Did they appear to be real people? Did you care about the characters? So the characterization. And when we get through that, we've really usually eaten up just about all the time and energy. And the last round is usually anything else. The music, the special effects, the location, etc. So again, the rounds are plot for round number 1. For round number 2, characterization. That's acting and directing and all that kind of stuff. And round number 3 is grab bag. Anything else you want to talk about. And that's it. Have fun. You'll do a great job, Kai. K1GBD, N5BB clear. Good night.
Good night. Thanks, Bill. All right, this is K1GBD. We'll be starting the Afterglow movie discussion in about 30 seconds. So if anybody has to use the repeater for any weird reason between now and then, go ahead and do so.
Well, since you put it that way, I just thought, well, this is a weird reason. I'm probably not going to stay up for the net, but I wanted to say hi, KF5GRH. Is that a weird reason?
I've listened to a lot of these nets, and I must say that I don't think that there is really anything that could be weirder than the net itself. And I'm logging you as a check-in on the net.
Hey, Guy.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Station check-in from north of Baton Rouge. Andy, N5ZCX. November 5, Zulu Charlie X-ray. You might see if Andy or anyone else from Louisiana or Mississippi happens to be hearing us. Because a little earlier, Andy could hear us, and he was very strong. N5BB clear.
Yep, copy that. All right, well, I've got him logged in just for fun. All right, good evening, everybody. This is Kilo 1 Golf Bravo Delta. My name is Guy, and you have stumbled on the Afterglow movie discussion. You've either stumbled here, or you have found your way here on purpose. And we won't judge you, because here I am. This evening's film is Bram Stoker's Dracula from 1992, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, starring the inimitable Keanu Reeves and Winona Ryder and Carrie Ewells, the Dread Pirate Roberts himself, and Anthony Hopkins as Van Helsing, I think. Yeah. Anyway, telling the classic tale of the Dracula character. And if you've read the book as I have, this one of all of them is actually kind of close to the book. So you don't have to have seen the movie to join the net, and you don't even have to have seen the movie to join the discussion. In fact, I had a really great discussion after having seen only the first half of a movie, and it was an interesting way to have the discussion because I stopped watching that movie about halfway, right as it changed course significantly, so it was interesting perspective. So, let's go ahead and take check-ins for the Afterglow movie discussion. If you would come with your call sign, your name and location, and if you've seen the movie or not, please come now.
Well, someone has to go first. November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony and Dallas. Yes, Aaron and I have seen this movie.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey. Jay, near Weatherford. I've seen most of it. There's that bit at the end. I think I might be listening in because I'm not sure how reliable my signal is to get to the repeater. I've seen it sit down below where if I transmit at the same time, I know it wouldn't be great. But then it kind of rises back up to something. Anyway, I'm taking too long. So I'll be listening. KG5BCW.
This is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. Name is Brenda, and I did see the movie. And I want to do a disclaimer. I'm just a placeholder here. I'm not the slide mistress. Don't give me credit where it's not due. But anyway, here we are for this wonderful movie. I'm very excited.
All right, well, that's a good start. So we picked up Tony, NT5TM, just up the road from me in Little Forest Hills. He's seen the movie. We got Jay out there in Weatherford, KG5BZW. Said he's seen most of it, except a little bit at the end. Jay, you sounded good. Had a little bit of bacon on the grill there, but so if you want to pop in later, you're welcome to, and I'll be happy to give you a signal report. But so far, so good. And Brenda, good evening. Not the mistress, not the slide mistress. Fair enough. I have no slides, so you're safe there. This is Kilo 1 Golf Bravo Delta, and this is the famous W5FC Afterglow movie discussion, and we are talking here in a few minutes about Bram Stoker's Dracula. Anybody who'd like to join us? Taking check-ins. Please come now.
Kilo Echo 5, Papa Oscar Echo, Lee in Mansfield, and no, I have not seen it.
Hey, good evening, Lee. Kilo Echo 5, Papa Oscar Echo. But it took a while to be able to say that without tripping over it. I certainly tripped over it a little bit. But thanks for joining us. If you haven't seen it, no worries. And do one more round of check-ins. Wonder how many people just listen along to this discussion. That's what I do on a lot of Saturdays if I haven't seen the movie. Usually I'm late working on some project or another, and I really like to have it in the background. But it would be nice to know that you were out there. And if you don't want us to call on you, then we won't, and that's okay. But I have found that, again, you could be a part of the discussion even if you haven't seen the movie. You've probably seen a Keanu Reeves movie. You've probably seen a Winona Ryder movie. You've probably seen an Anthony Hopkins movie. You might have seen a Francis Ford Coppola movie. So you bring some experience to the table anyway. So call right now for check-ins before we start discussing the movie. Come now with your call sign. All right, well, we'll take it from there. So let's talk about the movie. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Had you seen it recently? I just watched it. I think I've seen it. I think I'd seen it a long time ago, but none of it really rung a bell. So I felt like I was watching it for the first time. So I'm fresh off of the watching. So I'd be curious to see if you watched it recently, or you rewatched it, or if you saw it a long time ago, and your general thoughts. Let's start with Tony, NT5TM. Good evening, Tony. Great to hear you. What do you think?
This is a movie that Aaron and I have really liked over the years. I'll speak more about the characters during that round. Talking about the plot is kind of complicated and operatic. It would normally be a little bit hard to follow, and it is a great strength of this movie that all of these, he's kidnapped and now it's 1500, but now it's 1890 or what have you. You follow it very well. It's always explained enough, but never too much. You can keep track of all of these characters in all their various times and motivations. The plot is complex, but not too much so, and well handled, again, with just the right amount of exposition. The key thing that I think Coppola realized, and I have never read the book, it's probably here in the house somewhere, but we have a lot of books I've never read, and I think this is one of them. I never finished Frankenstein either. It is to Coppola's great credit that he did not make this a story about, a monster who eats people, because it's very easy to do. Choosing to make the plot revolve around love and redemption is harder, but ultimately makes it a much more engaging story that is, weirdly, because I'm not a vampire, much more relatable, because many people have done something they regret and wish to be redeemed, especially in the eyes of someone they love. So the plot was well balanced and well presented, and then well targeted, choosing which parts of the story to emphasize, and that's part of what makes it such a great movie to watch. NT5TM.
Well, awesome, Tony. Insightful as always. One of your and Aaron's favorites. That's good to know. Operatic. That's well described, I must say. I have some other things to say about this film, and I will wait till my turn, but operatic is just, that nails it. It's the nail in the coffin. And credit to Coppola for not making a monster movie, and that's for sure. And I think that this was one of the reasons this one was such a big hit when it came out. All right, cool. Well, look forward to hearing more thoughts from Tony. And next, we've got so Jay, if we could hear you, I could hear you just fine. So if you want to jump in, go for it. And if not, just say nothing or just say pass, and I'll move on to Brenda.
Well, this is a KG5BGW. The signal might be weaker now. I've noticed the dip and the strength of this repeater signal is kind of dipped. So how good or bad is it? I might say stuff or not. KG5BGW.
Well, you're scratchy, but perfectly copyable. If you could just speak up a little bit, I think the thing I'm mostly struggling with is just you're a little bit quiet. So if you just speak up a little bit, I think you sound great. We'd love to hear what you think.
Okay, well, I'll try. This is KU5BGW. I don't know what to think of the movie. It's got there were things that all of a sudden just seemed to come out of nowhere. I didn't realize, it's not, I don't hate it. I don't think it's bad, but I just don't know what to think about it. The acting's good, but that's not what you're asking about so much plot-wise. Plot-wise, it is really complicated, and I don't know. It's I feel like it's missing something, but it's hard to say what. I just kind of think of it as a little bit of an odd movie, and I don't know how exactly else to go on from there with it. So I'll leave it at that. KG5BGW.
KG5, BZW, K1GBD, Afterglow movie discussion. Well, first of all, you sounded great. I don't know if you have boosted power or gain or just spoke up, but yeah, you sounded great. So if that's, so you're coming in loud and clear. So you're officially a part of the discussion. Thanks for your thoughts and your insight. So not quite sure what to make of it. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that point of view for sure. Complicated. The plot line is having read the book, the plot line is actually kind of complicated as well, and so it's not surprising to hear you say it felt like it kind of things kind of came out of nowhere. Which I think could also lead to the feeling of like it feels like it's missing something. So I can see that for sure. The acting was good. Yeah, I've got some things to say about that too. I think that the comment that the acting was good goes hand in hand with operatic. So I'm looking forward to expounding on that a little bit. All right, cool. Well, thank you very much. All right, Brenda, the not mistress of the slides. What do you think of this movie? W5OZL, K1GBD. What you got?
This is W5OZL. I had not seen this movie before, and I don't think I've read the book, but I really enjoyed it. Of course, it's a classic story, and I thought they must have had an amazing budget to make this movie because they had all these incredible actors and special effects and everything. Plus, Francis Ford Coppola is pretty good. Gary Oldman, to me, he can do no wrong. He is such a good actor. And I think the group of actors they put together for this is a big reason it worked. Because they were just all so believable, even though it was such an unbelievable story. What else? What can you say about the plot? The plot is set by the book, so there wasn't much they could do about that. Well, back to that, W5OZL.
All right, copy that. Great movie, great group of actors, and yes, Gary Oldman also starred in this film. He literally starred he was actually the star of this film. I think I've got a blind spot to him from this evening because I think when I was watching the previews or I was just looking at it out of the corner of my eye while doing other things and getting it queued up, I thought Anthony Hopkins was playing Dracula. So I think I'm double crediting Anthony Hopkins. So, but yeah, Gary Oldman was great in this movie. Okay, cool. All right, and so Lee, KE5, Papa Oscar Echo. I'm getting it. You haven't seen it, but did you have anything you wanted to toss in before we start talking specifics?
KE5POE. No, but I'm going to go pull it up on Netflix in the next couple of days and watch it. Back to the net, 5POE.
Yep, copy that, Lee. Yeah, you should. It's worth a watch. It's worth a watch. All right, well, I guess my general thoughts are, first of all, it's an I felt like it was an interesting mix of actors. I like all the actors in the movie in one way or the other. I think poor Carrie Ewells is just, especially during that time, was just he can only play a jerk. So he's just always going to be the snivelly, jerk guy. So he was kind of irrelevant as far as I was concerned. I feel like poor Keanu Reeves has a hard enough time just, not sounding weird and deadpan when he's just being himself, and so putting an English accent in his mouth felt really, I'm glad he was not a huge part of the movie. I guess I'll say that. And operatic, boy, I mean, there were times in the movie, in fact, that it felt to me like they were literally trying to make it operatic. Specifically, the scene comes to mind towards the end where Winona Ryder is with Anthony Hopkins, and they are accosted in the middle of the night by the three witches. I guess they were vampire ladies, essentially. And he fights them off, and then so they go and attack the horse. And so they literally drop down out of the bottom of the frame, and then in the background is almost like, behind a screen. It looks very much like it looks exactly like you would do on stage. And there were a lot of scenes like that felt like they were literally trying to make it look like it was on stage. I do think that Coppola made I think it was a cool choice that he decided to make the movie that wasn't a monster movie, because this really is, essentially it's the movie. Well, it's the true story of Vlad the Impaler, and then the pretend story of Dracula. And as the book tells, it really is kind of a it's a complex and deep story, and it's not just about the vampire part. In fact, I think what I thought was most impressive was that though there were lots of blood and lots of ripping into necks and things, the actual vampire part was just kind of a given, and it wasn't the focus of it, which is usually what these movies are about, is the vampire part. I do, looking back at the time period, I am part of the generation that keeps thinking that the 90s was 10 years ago and not 20 years ago. So at first I was like, wow, were movies, so, lo-fi back 10 years ago? But it was really 20 years ago, and so it felt, to me it felt a little bit cheesy in its approach and in its visuals, despite what I know was a big budget. And there were times when it felt a little bit like it was sort of a vehicle for Winona Ryder and Keanu Reeves, who were really, really hot at the time. But I think they did a good job, and overall, I enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed it more at the end, that it got better, because in the middle it was kind of convoluted for me. So, so those are my overall thoughts about the film. My name's Guy, my call sign is K1GBD, and you're listening to the Afterglow Movie Discussion. We're talking about Bram Stoker's Dracula from 1992, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. If there's anybody out there who's been listening along and wants to join us, let's take one more round of check-ins before we start talking about specifics. Anybody else who'd like to join us, please come down with your call sign. All right. Well, let's go back to the top, and let's talk a little bit about characters. I'd be curious to know how everybody thought their characters did. Having read the book, it's always interesting to see how it gets treated. And I'm not, I literally read it once, so I'm not a big fanatic of the book or anything, but it's always interesting to see, kind of what pressure points they hit. So I'm just curious to see how everybody felt the characters did what they did. Specifically, Keanu Reeves, who kind of disappeared for a while and then came back towards the end. Curious to know what you thought about his performance. He's kind of hit or miss for me. So yeah, let's talk about characterization and the folks who played these characters. Tony, NT5TM.
Thank you, Guy. Great to hear your comments, and thank you for being net control tonight. I have just noticed that Dracula is on Project Gutenberg, so I have some bedtime reading I can begin. The character characters, well, Aaron warns me it's not very good, but it's probably not very long either. The characters are always what makes a good movie. I am a little bit selfish and narcissistic. I think the world revolves around me because I'm human. And if the world's not going to revolve around me, the world had better revolve around somebody else. Not something else, not an odd philosophical concept, but somebody else. Characters and their story. And this movie, I think, did a good job of having characters. It's always a terrible sign when a movie has a lot of characters in it and you can't tell them apart. What was your name again? I guess you're the pilot of the spaceship or the subterranean. Are we in space or under the earth? Can I even remember? That's always bad. This movie is not like that. It is a little broad and disorganized. It's got a lot of things in it. But the strength of the actors portraying all these various well-differentiated characters makes it watchable and stops me from getting lost. Aaron wants to sing Sadie Frost in the role of Lucy. She was not an actress that we knew well, but she did a great job. And of course, we want to pick on poor Keanu a little. Jonathan Harker is a terrible part. He doesn't really do anything. Things just happen to him, and he's a witness. The challenge would be that an actor with better instincts could have at least reacted better, Aaron points out. That he could have, as an audience surrogate, which is what Aaron calls him, shown more about how we should be reacting to things, and he didn't really rise up to that. But for basically everybody else, they draw their characters so sharply and well that I just never lost track of what was happening and what their motivation was and where we were going and why. So characters make the movie, and they almost all succeeded. Keanu Reeves might be a guy we really like, but he didn't quite seem well cast here. NP5TM.
Oh, thank you for your comments, Tony, and thank you, Aaron, as well. Surrogate, yeah, that's kind of, yeah, that's Keanu. I think, and maybe Coppola knew what he was. I mean, obviously he knows what he's doing, but he especially knew what he was doing when he kind of, in the original story. Somebody tell me if that gets obnoxious. I'm not trying to. It's just an interesting comparison because in the original story, all the things that happened to that character in the movie happened in the book, but of course they happen over a longer period of time, and he spends a lot more time kind of poking around the house and getting in trouble with Dracula, and ultimately being captured. And but they get past that pretty quickly in the movie and get to where he has crossed the sea, and that is like the first half of the book is his captivity, and so I think it probably was a deliberate decision to maybe get him in. Here's Keanu Reeves, come see the movie because you think he's a heartthrob if that's your thing, and then let's tuck him away so we can tell the story. And I also, it's a novella. It's a dramatic and hyperbolic story, and so I think the acting was along those lines. And I do agree. I did not know that the woman that played Lucy was not an actress. I think her performance was one of the best of the film, from beginning to end. And talk about somebody who went through. I mean, she went through the big transformation, and we don't know who she is. Like, we didn't know who she was as an actress, and so it was really easy to buy into that much more, I think, than Winona Ryder, who I just couldn't tell, honestly, from minute to minute, whether she was possessed or whether she was in love with Dracula or whether she was not wanting to be in love with Dracula. I felt it was very difficult to tell a lot of times because she was just being Winona Ryder. Okay, cool. Excellent. All right. Well, Jay, you're loud and clear on the last transmission as well, sir. So, characterization and these actors, what were your thoughts there? KG5BZW.
try to keep it brief because I keep on watching that signal meter, and it's dipping down to 3S3 and then goes up to S9. It's kind of interesting. But anyway, it's really, I think it's the actors that kind of hold this movie together. I say for Keanu Reeves did fine. Keanu Reeves, besides speed and, I guess there's certain actors that play themselves. Winona Ryder is one of them. Keanu Reeves is another. Anthony Hopkins, of course, he's quite varied and can show a lot of skill. I was not expecting Gary Hughes. And again, I think others have already commented how some of these actors are really just kind of playing a certain part that they're really commonly used for. I don't know about like Tom Waits or I didn't even realize he was in this film as well. I thought Richard E. Grant. I'm not sure who he is. I'm gonna have to look him up further. I don't know. He did a decent job, but really, let's get it's Gary Oldman. And that's all I can say. Actually, KG5BCW.
All right, KG5BCW. Thanks, Jay. Your signal's still sounding great. I think it's I mean, even the supporting actors. I mean, I think that I think everybody did a good job. I think Winona Ryder tends to play herself, and sometimes that works out great. And I think that I don't know. It could probably I don't know. This was a very dramatic role, and she is very good at being super dramatic, and I think that I think I'd fit well, with this particular film, I want to hear what Brenda has to say as well before I finish my thoughts. I got some thoughts on Gary Oldman, but Brenda, what are your thoughts on characterization of these actors? WB5OZL.
Okay, this is WB5OZL. I thought the characterization was pretty good. I like all those actors so much, and I just thought they did a great job. Now, Winona Ryder's character was kind of a flake. She couldn't decide what she wanted or what she wanted to do, and obviously very conflicted. And at times you just want to shake her and go, "Stop! You got a good husband, and go with him. This other guy's going to bring you a lot of pain," and he did. But that's the way it is. The Lucy character was really good too. She was amazing. Everybody was amazing in this. And I thought it stayed pretty true to the original story as far as the characters and their motivations and what all they did. Of course, I'd watch Gary Oldman in anything, and Anthony Hopkins, I'd watch him in anything too. I just can't believe they got this group of actors together for this thing. But and Francis Ford Coppola is obviously such a really good director that to me this was the characters that made this thing work, or the actors that made the characters work. And I thought it was a completely enjoyable movie. A little hard to watch at times, but totally engaging, and I enjoyed it. I really wouldn't mind seeing it again. Back to net, WV50ZL.
WV50ZL, K1TBD, Afterglow movie discussion. We're talking about the 1992 version of Bram Stoker's Dracula. I've been saying Stroker, I just figured that out. So, well, you're dead on, I think, about Winona Ryder's character, and I mean, we can't blame Winona Ryder for that. You know, just her big, bright, brown eyes that kind of lend themselves to just looking surprised and confused all the time. But that made me think, what that really made me think, Brenda, was I didn't feel like so at the very end, even Keanu Reeves was like, you know what, she's got a lot more, she's made her choice, and she has, bigger fish to fry than us shooting her in the heart. So let's just, let her go, because essentially, at least seemingly, she sort of made the choice to go be with Dracula in presumably his last moments. But what was kind of frustrating about that is that I could never really tell, and I'd be curious what y'all think about, did she ever really choose? I mean, I just couldn't tell from moment to moment if she was choosing or if she was possessed. And I couldn't tell from... Now, what I did take away from Gary Oldman's performance, and I think from the way the story was written, the script was written, I did feel like Dracula was both just, filled with his own rage and revenge, which of course we know is what turned him into Dracula in the first place and essentially prolonged his life, was just utter, revenge and rage, but also, wanting to have love, but also knowing what it would mean to take Winona Ryder's character and make her undead forever. And I felt like I didn't get a big sense that he was really struggling with that. I got the sense that he had both of those things fighting with it, but I didn't see a lot of struggling with that. And I think what would have been cool if it had, I don't know how you would have done this, because I feel like the movie ended like 5 times, so I don't know how you would have made it any longer, but it felt like if there was another way to go further into watching him kind of struggle through that, I would have really enjoyed that, because at the end, where the light shines on his face and she says he, released us all, I didn't quite feel it the way I think I was supposed to feel it. And I certainly didn't feel like she was making some big sacrifice, so I just couldn't tell where the heck she was from moment to moment. But even, like I say, like even at the end, even Keanu was like, he even had a moment of, okay, at least he had a moment of clarity, so, okay. Well, and of course, anything else anybody would like to say about any of the things we've talked about, that's why it's a discussion, right? But I'd like to hear about the special effects, or just sort of the visual style. This is, I think it's Victorian, right? Let's see, are we in, I think we're in Victorian England, and I certainly felt like the costumes were beautiful. I felt like the dungeon thing was a little bit like Pirates of the Caribbean, so some of it felt, that's the part that felt operatic to me, like it felt like it was deliberately trying to look like a set. Like I felt like that was on purpose, because there were scenes that were, beautifully shot that were very real. So, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about visual style. Let's talk about special effects, to the overall look and feel of the film. Back to you, Tony, NT5TM.
visual style, effects and music, and all those other third-round things. The music was just wonderful. I don't really care what kind of instruments you use, bagpipes, an erhu, a didgeridoo. It doesn't have to be just stereotypical symphonic instruments, but please use instruments, not beeping and booping from computers. It always sounds cheap. And next year's beeping and booping will always be better. This movie used instruments. Well used. Likewise, good optical effects, good real effects are always going to outlast your computer graphics. I mean, maybe in the next 10 or 20 years we'll get past that where just no one can tell. But for the past 40 years, last year's computer graphics have always looked laughably obsolete. And had this movie used early 90s CGI, it would have just been painful. We'd be cackling about how the great performance from Anthony Hopkins was undercut by the CGI bats that fluttered around his head. Fortunately, that didn't happen. The effects in this movie were almost all done in camera with multiple exposures and matting. You shoot some miniatures and black out part of the frame, and then you shoot the actors with the miniatures blacked out. So it kind of gives it an old-timey silent movie look, which I like because I love Metropolis. And it ages so well. Because, yeah, it looks like a miniature, but it's never going to look worse than that. It will never look like, oh, you bought an obsolete computer, what's wrong with you? Ooh, Erin adds that her favorite practical effect like that is when the train is going across the pages of Harker's diary, which is great, but yet it's a classic multiple exposure. By getting your lighting right, you could have done that effect in 1929 just as well. And that's why it works so well in Dracula. So I like the way they handled their complicated plot. I love the way they kept the characters strong and separate. And I also really like the way the effects and music support the movie and don't age out and are not bad. They're very supportive and effective. NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. That's a really great point about the double exposure. You could have shot that in 1920, and I expect that was part of what they were going for. You've got sort of the romanticism. A lot happens on the train. The train is and in the book even more, the train is a real character in the movie, as is the ocean a little bit less. And sort of, the ocean steamer and the cross-country train are such, there's such great parts of American film history and storytelling, and I think that it's very deliberate. It's meant to be, the book was written in late 1800s, and I think that, that I hadn't really thought about that. I hadn't really noticed that, but, using some of those, Agatha Christie style or, what am I thinking? Oh, it'll come to me. But using even some visual style and some film style that harkens back to older films, I think also kind of, it grounds it. It never, ever, ever felt like it was I don't think I would have pegged it for the 90s. I think if I had no idea. I do think it ages well. I do think it ages well. I think that there are a few things that they're going to get better over the course of time, and some of that's literally just sort of filming technology. But great points, and great point about the music too. Yep, absolutely no argument with the music at all. I agree with that. And again, it gives the whole, because there's something about Dracula that's also, part of it's very sexy, but part of it's also very, it's castles, and it's the upper class, and it's it's all that stuff, and so the music lends that weight to that. So, okay, cool. All right, back to Jay, KG5BZW. We're talking about visual style and special effects.
Is it my turn?
Yes, sir. Talking about special effects and visual style. You're getting a little bit more scratchy, but we can still copy you.
Yeah, well, the repeater actually dipped below my squelch level as far as how loud it was. So, like I said, keeping an eye on it. I better keep it brief while I've still got the one thing. The one thing I knew about this movie before watching it was the special effects, especially the costuming. Oh my goodness, Gary Oldman did not look like Gary Oldman as his. I don't know how to label that himself there. The one when Jonathan Harker. Well, I don't know why. Sorry. Sorry. I was trying to bring something up. Anyway. Yeah. I almost hate to bring it up just because. Yeah, that's what everybody seems to know about this film is the 3 Oscars it won related to those kinds of things. The special effects were really good. Music-wise, I didn't even notice the audio design. So I have to say that was pretty good too. Yeah, I don't have that much to say really. KG5BZW.
KG5BZW, K1GBD, Afterglow movie discussion. Yep, fair enough. Boy, you're right about the costumes. I'm always careful when I say that because one of my big sisters actually was a professional costumer in the theater for a long time, and she was never, obnoxious about it. But there's, did you really get the period right or not? But I don't know, and it's certainly, I kind of felt like Oldman's makeup was a little bit. That felt a little bit hokey to me, but I think that is, that really is that was before everything was motion capture, and I guarantee you that if you were doing this film now, even if you wanted to do everything, with practical effects, you'd still use some sort of motion capture to really, really nail that. So I think they were limited, and boy, that guy, he went through. He was like 15 different creatures in the movie, and each one was completely different, and the transformations were really, really good. And so I think that's a great point. That they looked incredible, and I have to agree. I don't know if anybody saw Tenet in the theater. We did, and one of the things that immediately came out, was that the sound, the editing was just horrendous. In fact, they had to remix it before they released it on digital because it was just, you couldn't hear anybody talking. You just could, it was a batch job. I don't know, it was just a botched job. I don't know what they were thinking. But, and when you don't really know that you notice, you just come away that you had a sense and a feeling for the movie. I think that says something about the sound design. And I think that was I think that was a real testament to it, including the music. So, all right, Jay, cool. All right, Brenda, look and feel. Special effects. W5OZL, K1GBD. The net is yours, man.
This is W5OZL. Well, we watch so many of these late-night movies that are so neglected. They're thrown together. There's no budget. It's like nobody really cares. Let's just get it done and get it out. And it's kind of, it's so depressing. So many 50s movies were made like that. They knew it wasn't good. They didn't care. They didn't put any effort into it. But this is a movie that is well-loved and has so much heart and so much effort put into it. Obviously, they had a good budget, and that helps. And the effects had modern effects, which was good. But it didn't look like they were trying to cut any corners. I don't know how this movie did at the box office or if it made any money at all, but it's more like a work of art than just a movie. And I appreciate that because there's so much to see here everywhere you look. And that's why these great people like Francis Ford Coppola and a number of other directors, it's so much fun to watch them because there's just so many depths of meaning and expression and art. And it really makes for a wonderful experience to watch this. All right, back to net, WB5OZL.
Yep, copy that. I think you guys might appreciate. I'm reading the Wikipedia article here, and a couple interesting things. So I think you guys will appreciate this. Let me read this little blurb to you. Coppola was insistent that he did not want to use any of the contemporary special effect techniques, such as computer-generated imagery, when making the movie, instead wishing to use antiquated effects techniques from the early history of cinema, which he felt would be more appropriate given the film's period setting coincides with the origin of the film. That's kind of what we were talking about. I had not read that before I said that, and before Aaron had called that out. So good night, you guys. He initially hired a standard visual effects team, but when they told him that the things he wanted to achieve were impossible without using modern technology, Coppola disagreed and fired them, replacing them with his son, Roman Coppola. As a result, all of the visual effects seen in the film were achieved without the use of optical or computer-generated effects, but were created using on-set and in-camera methods. For example, any sequences that would have typically required the use of compositing were instead achieved by either rear projection with actors placed in front of the screen with an image projected behind them, or through multiple exposure by shooting a background slate, then rewinding the film through the camera and shooting the foreground slate on the piece of film, all the while using matting techniques to ensure that only the desired areas of film were exposed. Forced perspectives were often employed to combine miniature effects or matte paintings with full-size elements or create distorted views of reality, such as holding the camera upside down or at odd angles to create the effects of objects defying the laws of physics. So interesting. So I think it's cool that, and maybe he knew all along, right, that there was, these guys with the computers were not going to be able to do what he wanted, but it's interesting that he went to them and they were like, nope, you got to use graphics. He was like, nope, screw you guys. There's also a picture in this Wikipedia article of the really cool armor that Vlad wore in the very beginning of the movie, which is one of the coolest parts of the movie as I'm concerned. It's one of the neatest pieces of armor I've ever seen. All right, well, this is the Afterglow movie discussion on W5FC. My name is Guy. My call sign is Kilo 1 Golf Bravo Delta, and tonight we're talking about Bram Stoker's Dracula, as directed by Francis Ford Coppola in 1992. And I think we'll round it out. We'll do a 73 round here, I think. Any final additional thoughts? Thought about locations? Thought about anything that maybe you didn't like, even if you loved the film, or anything that you felt like you would have liked to seen better? You know, it's always interesting to think about if for better or for worse, right? If a movie was made today, right? And I don't know that holds weight one way or the other for this particular movie. I think it's great right where it is. I think it's great where the actors where they were in their time. Another tidbit, by the way, by the in the Wikipedia article is that Christian Slater was initially they offered it initially to him, and he turned it down and regretted it later. And Coppola does say that basically they choose Keanu Reeves because they were looking for a sort of a heartthrob, and it wasn't a very good, character, and so they just wanted somebody that just kind of could look good doing it. And that he worked really, really hard in his accent, and that was probably kind of the problem. So, so final thoughts, last thoughts you'd like to share with us on this really fun film. Let's go back to the top. Tony, NT5TM, the net is yours.
NT5TM.
NT5TM. Tony, I heard your call sign, and then I heard some sizzle. I'm not sure if we lost you.
No, I'm still here. I just wanted to give my call sign and wait to be called on.
All right, called on you are. Go for it. That is yours.
Aaron wants to echo the approval that others have expressed of the casting choice of Richard Grant. Is it Richard Grant? Did I get that right? Richard E. Grant. She thinks that he made some very good acting choices in the movie. I would like to also, I guess I'm just acting as Aaron's relay, because I love this movie, but she also has interesting things to say about it. That perhaps, I know Tom is probably not listening, so I will follow this up with Facebook and email messages. Werner Herzog has a movie of Nosferatu, and he's a very interesting director as well. And he works with the psychotic actor Klaus Kinski a lot. So perhaps when you have two different kinds of unpleasant delusional genius, we can get a very interesting vampire movie out of it. So this is a great movie, and I will pass along her comment about Werner Herzog's Nosferatu soon too. NT5TM.
All right, copy that. Yes, good point. And boy, you could do a whole deep dive on just the treatments of Dracula before you spread out into what is sort of the the deep and wide pool that is the treatment of vampires across cinema and modern and old storytelling. But that would be interesting. I have not seen that one. So I'd be interested to check out. All right, cool. Well, thank you two very much, Tony and Aaron, for your great insights as usual. Jay, any final thoughts for us? KG5BZW. The net is yours, sir.
This is KG5BZW. I will say that the link that we were given to see the movie, I was having trouble hearing the actors on that. So I went ahead and rented it, and oh my gosh, the audio was so much clearer. And of course, because the link was, I don't want to get into too many details there. Let's just say I am so glad I actually rented the film because I had subtitles, but I actually didn't even need the subtitles when I was the rented version. The audio was just so much clearer. Yeah, somebody, when they, whoever, transcode or whatever, Something happened. So yeah, if watching it through like Amazon Prime just was the right choice for me. So anyway, I don't know what else to say about that because man, I was actually getting ticked off at the first. I could not understand the story. Something about that. That's all. That's all. Here's your copy today.
Well, copy that. Thanks for all your thoughts tonight, Jay. Yeah, I almost always will go to Apple TV or whatever and try to, if I can. It's so irritating, you know, you can't find anything on Netflix or HBO, but I tend to be really immediately and accidentally even snarky about how a film looks or how it sounds, and so I do like to have the best version of it I can get. I'm really not a cinephile, it's definitely better, because then you don't spend your time, like you say, you know, being irritated at the sound, and you don't know whether or not that was really the movie, and that can be really distracting. So I'm glad you had a chance to watch it in what sounds like high fidelity, because that makes a big difference for sure. All right, Brenda, WB5OZL, any final thoughts? Boy, Brenda, it sounds like, I mean, I'm not being facetious. I can tell you really like this movie. I've heard you talk about a lot of different movies on this net, and it just sounds like you really, this was a good one. This was a good one. So any last thoughts on this one? W5OZL, K1GBD.
This is W5OZL. The only criticism I have is it was really dark in a lot of places, and it was hard to make out what was going on. That would be my main criticism. I'd like to see this a good copy on a big screen, because I was watching it on YouTube on my computer, which is not optimum. Yeah, final thoughts. So many movies we watch are such stinkers, and this one was just a delight, because it was, like I said, it's like a work of art. And I'm not normally a big fan of vampire movies. A lot of the modern ones don't really do anything for me. But this one was really just, I'm not going to say perfect, but it was really, really good. And I'm glad we watched this. So, well, that's about all I have to say. This is WB5OZL. And by the way, thanks for doing the net tonight.
WB5OZL. Well, Brenda, thank you very much for your thoughts and insight on this film. I think I would say what made it a good vampire movie is it wasn't a vampire movie, right? It wasn't really about the vampiring. You know, that's usually the thing. It's about running away from Dracula, or him tricking you into inviting him into your home, or I remember the 80s movie Lost Boys with who were those guys? Lou Diamond Phillips and all those. And that would be a good one for this group, because that was actually a fun with John Lithgow. And but anyway, this wasn't a vampire movie, right? In fact, I think for me, what made it dark was that it was, it was dark and violent, and in some ways, and that was just, I think, really indicative of the price that Vlad had paid to express his rage and his vengeance, and he kind of did it to himself, and it was. Oh, and you know what? The crazy guy that was in prison. Like, what was? I mean, I don't remember from the book at all, but boy, he was kind of pointless, which was a bummer, because I feel like he gave a really good performance too, but it was kind of ancillary. So I feel like I agree with Brenda, and I feel like in some ways this was it it was a little bit convoluted, but I also think that it was a lot to try to manage, and I think that came through a little bit, was that there was just, you couldn't go into all the details while also being true to the story, because you had to tell the story of all the people that were involved. And again, I think my last thought would be that I felt like the best, I think Lucy was the sleeper hit of the movie for me. I feel like she was the most engaging, and she had the biggest arc. And she ended up with her head chopped off, so that's always a bummer. But all right, y'all. Well, I was bound and determined to watch the movie this week. I couldn't get through that Star Trek movie, and I love Star Trek, and I love The Next Generation, but I couldn't get through that movie, so I couldn't. So I'm glad to have been able to be a part of this and was able to do net control this evening. So thanks, everybody. If you count Andy out there in Louisiana, who Bill asked me to count, and Melissa, who came and went, we had 7 people this evening. So, with all of that, my name is Guy. My call sign is Kilo 1, Golf Bravo Delta. This has been the Afterglow movie discussion, bringing up the rear of the famous W5FC Night of Nets. And let's thank the folks who run and make this repeater available for us to do all kinds of cool stuff on Saturday nights and every night of the week. Repeater here at W4, wow, 146.88. And with that, clearly I need to go to bed, and I expect you guys too. So this is K1GBD closing the net at 23:41 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur radio use, whatever that is, and I will say 73 and clear. Good night, y'all.
Thank you very much, Guy, for being net control. It was a really fun net. NT5TM.
My pleasure, Tony. And thanks to you and your partner for your great insights. I always appreciate it. Y'all have a great night. K1GBD.